Let's begin there with CNN political commentator and op-ed columnist for the New York Times, Charles Blow, and Larry Elder, radio host and author. And so as we wait for the president, Larry, my first one is to you, talking to Mark Lamont Hill, who is actually now in Ferguson, and he has not mince words in terms of his criticism toward the president. That I hear you, but last week, he said that the president did not mention what happened in Ferguson. He didn't mention race specifically, and he says that was a mistake. Do you think it was a mistake? Should he mention race in 10 minutes?
I think that President Obama has mentioned race improperly many, many times during the course of his presidency. One of the first things he said is to criticize the Cambridge Police Department and said they acted stupidly. He injected himself in the Trayvon Martin case and said if I had a son, he would have looked like Trayvon. The fact of the matter is there were 14,000 homicides last year. About half of them were committed by black people, almost always against another black person. In Chicago alone, there were 10 homicides a week, most of them by black people, almost always against another black person, and the majority of those are unsolved. I would like to see as much attention paid to the murder of the 15-year-old girl who performed at Obama's inauguration as the killing of Michael Brown in Ferguson. But that was a two-day story. This is a national epidemic.
Race?
I don't think it's
Should he be specific on race?
Obama has said that the #1 problem is not having fathers. If you don't have a father in the home, Obama said when he gave a talk before a historical black college, you're 5 times more likely to be poor, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, 20 times more likely to go to jail. Now, 75% of the kids are raised without fathers, and if you're 20 times more likely to go to jail, that's a far bigger problem than this problem of unarmed black people being killed by the police. I'm not saying we ignore it, but for crying out loud, let's have some perspective.
Okay, so for crying out loud perspective, so says Larry Elder. Charles Blow, do you agree?
I can't say, you can't even ask me if I agree with that. There's so many factual problems with what was just said, including, what we
Name one.
Default position. I will. I let you speak, and you will let me speak. #1 is you say that 75% of African American children are raised without fathers. Because someone is born to a single mother does not mean that that father does not engage with that child. And I think that is a real big... Yes, you did say that. You said they were raised without fathers. You said that. The other thing that is a problem with that is that...
It's a nitpick.
Hang on, Larry. Hang on.
See, this is the problem, right? And the other problem with that is that you act as if those women never want to be married or actually do marry during the course of that child's being raised. And if you say a person is raised without a father, that is just factually inaccurate to say 75% of African American children are raised without a father.
Your quarrel to President Obama.
That is the myth. That is the myth of the absent black father. So let's just start with that point, right? Okay. So but the bigger point, I think, the point you were getting at was whether or not the president should have dealt with race specifically.
That's what Mark Lamont Hill says. Do you agree?
I don't necessarily say. I mean, I think that he has, in fact, dealt with race issues a lot, including most recently the idea of my brother's keeper and trying to specifically deal with issues that are affecting African American youth. You can say something when I'm finished, like I said to let you finish when you were speaking, right?
I'm not your enemy, Charles. I'm not your enemy.
I don't ask you to be my enemy, but don't be rude either, right? It's just not. It's not okay. We can disagree. Black people is a varied group of people. We're not monolithic. We all have different opinions. You can have yours, and I respect the fact that you have a different opinion. Respect the fact that I have a different opinion. I also want to say that I respect the idea that this president is trying to specifically address African American youth.
How does he do it? How does he do it in 10 minutes, though? You mentioned my brother's keeper. How does he bring that? Give us 1 second, Larry. Just finish your thought, Charles.
Well, I don't know if he necessarily does it in 10 minutes. I think that every time you actually acknowledge that there is an issue, which he has been trying to do, and when you acknowledge that there is a pain, that there is a kind of a historical scar, and you try to figure out how do we unwind and heal that scarring, and how do we unwind and heal what is affecting people both on an interpersonal level, but also on a societal, systematic level, that you are stepping one step closer to doing that. He cannot erase the damage done by 400 years of oppression. He can, however, acknowledge that that oppression was real and acknowledge that we have to do something about it.
Go ahead, Larry.
I like to say a couple of things. First of all, I think we do a disservice to the people that fought hard and died in order for us to get where we are today, to act as if nothing has changed in America. We have a black president who's been reelected. We have a black attorney general who's shown no reluctance to sue on the basis of a civil rights violation. We're doing people a disservice by acting like this is your grandfather's America. It is not. Secondly, I live in Compton, a suburb of Los Angeles that used to be almost all black. It is now almost all Latino. However, the people that run the city are still almost all black. And if you ask them about that, they'll say, what are you saying, Larry? Should I resign because my constituents have gone from black to Latino? I can't fix a street. I can't fix a light now because my constituents are Latino. That's racial profiling. That's racist. So it's not fair to assume that whatever happened between Michael Brown and Officer Wilson happened because of a racial animus. Maybe Michael Wilson made mistakes. Maybe he just blew it. I don't know. But let's not assume right away that because one officer is white, one person with whom he has an altercation is black, ergo racial motivation. Not fair.
Let me jump in. Larry, I don't know if you read the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar piece in Time magazine, but he makes the point, and I just heard a young man speaking to Don Lemon in Ferguson sort of saying the same thing, that this is not a black and white issue, at least talking about what happened in Ferguson, and maybe the bigger picture. He said this is not only a class issue, it is a power authority issue, and that is the problem.
Well, it's also an issue of representation, and I hear people talk about how the Ferguson Police Department does not represent the city. So what? Are you saying that because the city has a certain racial composition, you therefore can't represent the people? If that's the argument, the logical extension is Obama should never be president because black people are just 13% of the country. That's ridiculous. Martin Luther King taught us to try to evaluate people based upon the content of their character, not the color of their skin. I think we're going backward.
Let me just hit pause on this. 60 seconds I have remaining. Just final thoughts. Briefly, gentlemen. Larry and then Charles. Larry, go ahead. I hear you laugh. Go ahead.
During the O.J. Simpson case, the head of the police chief was black. He did a full study to find out if anybody altered evidence during the case. He said no. Those who believe that O.J. Simpson was a victim of a conspiracy still believed it, Brooke. It didn't matter.
Charles.
Right. I don't think that it's smart to discount race completely because we don't know whether or not it plays into this particular case. However, on the DOJ's point of view, which is civil rights violation, race does not have to even matter. You have to justify that you did not exceed the force that was necessary in the particular case in the firing of each one of those bullets. If he cannot justify the firing of each one of those bullets, then you can have a case of civil rights violations, and I think that that is important to always keep in mind.
Charles Blow, Larry Elder,
based on what I know so far,
both of you.